So my name's Lili. I'm a staff engineer at Sneak. And I want to talk to you today about something that I've been doing quite a lot of recently, this year in particular, and that is pitching. So first of all, hands up if you know what I'm talking about. Oh, okay, that's a low number. Okay, great. So this is going to be a very educational talk, I hope. So for the last 10 years, I have been standing firmly behind the idea that you don't have to be a leader to lead. You don't need a fancy title in order to make significant impact. Leadership is a skill, and it is a really valuable skill, no matter where you are in the organization. Simon Sinek said that a leader without a title is better than the title without the ability to lead. And I really couldn't agree more. Simon has a really interesting TED Talk that I highly recommend. It talks about how generational companies keep being successful and what it is that makes them successful over time. And spoiler alert, it's the leadership. But why am I talking about leadership? So good leaders need to be able to motivate their team. They need to be able to make decisions. They need to be able to inspire others. And those are the same skills that you need in order for others to hear your ideas and then implement them. So this is where we get on to pitching. Pitching is one way of communicating your ideas with the intention of having them implemented at the company that you're working at. If any of you work with ShapeUp, pitching is kind of part of that methodology. So that's also an interesting one to read about. So pitching, when done well, enables you to communicate your ideas effectively. It also generates buy-in from your team or your organization. And it also helps you shape the technical direction of the solution. However, if your idea is not well communicated, if it lacks clear business use case, and if it doesn't have any supporting data, then it's unlikely that the idea is going to be, heard and then implemented. And I'm sure all of us at some point have felt like we were so right for, recommending a certain solution, a certain idea, a certain proposal, but it kind of fell flat. And there may be many reasons why that is. And hopefully we'll cover some of the ideas today that can help you make sure that doesn't happen. So I want to share with you a structure of a pitch that's been working really well for me, that is kind of an evolution of human feedback and ChatGPT feedback throughout the year. And then a little bit of tips on how to make that content a little bit better. And then we'll go through an actual example together. So first of all, start with the problem. As Simon Sinek would say, start with the why. Why should somebody care about what you're about to say? Try to tie this with the business goals, with something that your team really cares about. Maybe it's a long-standing problem that's existed that everybody's aware of. Maybe it's something that is just absolutely obvious but isn't on the roadmap. Maybe it is something that is really, really hidden and you are aware of it because you're really close to the problem, but others maybe don't see it. Make sure to align it with business goals. If your company is trying to save money this quarter, how does this problem, if resolved, save money? That is a really good way to tie it to business goals. And use a data-driven approach. When you present a problem without any data, it's incredibly difficult to try and gauge how big of a problem this is. And it's even more difficult to try and understand how effective the solution that you're proposing is and how successful that solution is. So you present the problem, and then we want to talk about the solution. However, when we're talking about the solution, you don't want to be tied to a particular solution. You want to be tied to the outcome. The solution is just how you get there, but it is the outcome that's really important. So make sure to provide several options, in fact. List every obvious solution that you can think of with the pros and cons that you know of. Align that solution again with business goals. Why should the company care? Does this save them money? Does this help retain customers? Does this help make a happier customer? And listing these options also helps others try and understand what it is that you're trying to get at. And even maybe generate some other ideas that might in fact be even better. So be open to alternative approaches. So you've presented the problem, you've suggested some solutions. Now you want to talk about the impact of what solving that problem that you're going to generate. Again, you want a data-driven approach. There's a theme here. If that data doesn't exist today, see if you can add it. Add metrics for exactly what is the kind of question that you're trying to answer here. So if it is, for example, oh, the users seem to fall off this page, can you get that metric in place? And then whatever it is that you do to try and improve it afterwards, see that number reduce. So you want to be able to prove the effectiveness of what you have done here. And that is also going to build credibility in the future. If you are able to generate ideas with proven success, that means that people are more likely to listen to those ideas in the future. If you can't add the metrics for any reason, you could go in and do something super hackety manually. You can do it as a one-off calculation before, and then again, one-off calculation afterwards. And when talking about the impact, focus on your end users or your customers. How does it benefit them? How does it help them with the product? How does it make them happier, more effective users? So we've talked about the problem, the solution, the impact, and now talk about the challenges. What is going to prevent this from being a success? You want to show that you have considered all of these things. You've thought about what it is that could occur that is going to prevent you from having this pitch be a complete success from start to finish. So try and identify as many challenges as you can in advance. And a challenge can look really, really different depending on where you're working. It could be a money challenge. It could be that you do not have the actual budget to pay for the best solution that would help you with this. It could be a process. There may be a missing process that would have enabled you and helped you with this. It could be a people challenge. You may be working somewhere where the culture just doesn't exist that would make this a success. But challenges are not blockers. Challenges are not excuses why this can't be done. So challenges are there to be overcome. So for every challenge that you document, you'll have to consider how to overcome that challenge in your solution as well. So that was the structure. We'll have a problem, a solution, the impact, the challenges. As for the content, how can we make that effective? So first of all, you want to try and tell a story as much as possible. So if it is a long-standing problem that everybody's aware of, but for some reason nobody is working on it, it's not on the roadmap, tell that story. Tell the story of how for the last several years this has been a known problem. If it is something that you have witnessed yourself by working with a customer during a usability call or a customer call, you can again tell that anecdote. So try and make it engaging. Humans are really not good at remembering random facts and figures, but we're good at remembering stories. And especially if those facts and figures come with a story, you're more likely to have that remembered as well. And then whatever pitch you do, you have to consider carefully who is your intended audience. You may do the pitch to several audiences, and if that's the case, you would want to tailor it to those audiences. What your team and your engineers might care about is not the same as what the managers, directors, and the business might care about. So if you're pitching to your peers who are engineers, you might want to highlight how this solution helps make them more effective in their day-to-day, how it helps with the current architecture, how it helps to evolve their architecture, or how it helps with the current processes. If you're pitching higher up, you're definitely going to want to think about the customer side of things as well as the ARR. So how does this solution and how does solving this problem actually help to retain your customers? How does it make for happier customers? If there's any evidence that you can provide that you might be able to actually retain customers by fixing this problem, that is a certain monetary value that you can say that this will add. And then for every single thing that you claim, every number, every metric, every report, make sure to link that in there. If this is a technical pitch, don't put all the difficult technical information into the pitch, but provide that as supporting materials. So when somebody is hooked in, they're interested, they want to read more, they have the materials, the pull request, the spike, whatever that is, to go and actually investigate for themselves. And once you think you're done, add a little bit of ChatGPT magic. So nowadays, you don't need to ask your colleague for a peer review. You could ask ChatGPT, to start with at least. And then, of course, verified by a human. But you can use ChatGPT to help you get to a good place initially. So it could help you with structure development. You could generate visual aids. Every picture and every slide here was generated by ChatGPT and DALL-E. So you can really tailor the pictures and everything to try and tell that story that you're trying to tell. ChatGPT can also help you edit things for clarity. If you're someone who tends to be quite wordy, it can really help you just to narrow everything down. If English is not your first language, like mine, not everything I think in my head is exactly how it comes across on paper. And ChatGPT can help me try and make it more English, which is really nice. You can also actually just upload the entire pitch or the slides to ChatGPT and ask it for feedback. So it's like having a colleague review your work, but maybe they're not 100% focusing. So you definitely want to double check that what they're saying makes sense and that the information they gave you is correct. And my favorite one now is probably research. So you can ask ChatGPT to sort of provide some supporting materials and give you some little nuggets and clues where you can start and go do some further research. Again, it's not ideal, but it is faster than potentially Googling around for something you don't know what you're Googling for. All right, so let's have a look at an example. So let's imagine we're working at Cats Incorporated. And as you can see, we have a mobile application. And basically, it allows users to look after and manage their personal projects. As you can tell by the UI, we might have some problems. Thank you, ChatGPT. So the pitch example is I would like to pitch to the company to dedicate 10% of the roadmap in Q1 to front-end performance improvements. And you can grab the document if you want on the bit.ly link, which is half-stack pitch. So I'm going to start off initially with the structure I've just shared. What is the problem, the solution, the impact, the challenges, section for more information. In the metadata, make sure to tag all the authors of this document, somebody that's helping you review. The intended audience here, again, set that in the document, be very explicit. Last updated and the status, so you can have your pitch in draft, in review, accepted, implemented. So then let's describe the problem. So in my made-up company, I'm saying that in Q3, we have received 40 support tickets that reference slowness and performance as a frustration. On top of that, 10 lost renewals had quoted performance as a contributing factor for not choosing to renew their contract. I have seen firsthand how frustrated our users can get with the slow UI of CatSync during support calls. So Google's Need for Mobile Speed study found that over half of all mobile visits are abandoned if the page doesn't load within 3 seconds. And here's a list of further 5 case studies showing the same trends. Our P99 of loading metrics for all project pages is 10 seconds, which was calculated manually, as we currently lack the monitoring in this area. So what am I proposing here? So I just picked something out of there. There are so many different solutions to this, but we want to start somewhere. So my proposal is to dedicate 10% of each team's roadmap towards front-end performance in Q1, so that we can reverse this trend and build performance into our engineering culture. If we consider 10% of Q1 in terms of time, then this would be equivalent of 7 working days, so 1 week of company's time. And here are the 3 options of how we could spend that time effectively. Actually, it's 2 options. So option 1, I'm just kind of outsourcing the problem, R&D-wide hackathon, right? Engage the entire company. Say we could do a 2-day hackathon where we can kickstart the effort. The teams probably already know some of the best practices that could be implemented. Maybe they didn't have a chance to get those ideas heard before. This is their chance. And then in the remaining 5 days, we could implement the outcomes and the recommendations from that hackathon. So that means there would be about 5 days of work that could be scheduled into teams sprints afterwards. So you're not providing any specific ideas here. So you're just suggesting that let everybody do their best because they probably know what needs to be done. Or we could suggest to do something simple, which is to introduce front-end performance tool like SpeedCurve. So we're currently lacking the monitoring for the performance of the front-end platform. Using the tool like SpeedCurve will allow us to have continuous real user monitoring and also detect degradation of performance early. So you can suggest here that we are going to essentially, in CI, notice straight away when something's gotten worse. So you're now saying that it can't get worse without us noticing, at least. And that can then build the culture of actually looking at something, figuring out why it got worse, and then improving things overall. And again, here I'm providing a breakdown of how that might even look in terms of time. So I'm saying maybe a small team of 2-3 engineers initially actually scope what it looks like to use the tool, implements the tool, and then we start using it for a short period of time, collect the learnings, and then implement what we find. Maybe the top 5 issues from those learnings, we go ahead and implement those. So it's just small first steps towards a different culture. So what is the impact of this? So if I were to focus this towards just R&D, so mostly engineering, so I'm going to say that the impact is by improving our performance practices, we can continuously monitor and react to any degradations. We understand our current main problem areas, which we currently don't have visibility into, and we can also then adjust our design system to have components in place that will not bring in performance problems. And we could solve the 20 open support tickets that were tagged as front-end performance. And for limited testing, we believe we can reduce the project page loading times from 10 seconds to 200 milliseconds. If I was aiming this towards directors, I would tweak it a bit by saying that we can improve the performance. We will remove it as a reason for customers to say they didn't renew because of it. And based on the calculations from the previous report, that could be 10% of our lost renewals do not have that reason anymore. So that's potentially 100K ARR. It could solve the 20 open support tickets. Businesses usually have some kind of mandate over how many open support tickets you have. And then from limited testing, again, we believe that we can improve the page loading times. So then I can talk about the challenges. So something like SpeedCurve isn't cheap. So I can mention that. So this can cost between 500 to 1,000 per month, depending on the size of the company. This could be a lot. This could be nothing. However, if you think about the ARR that you could be saving, which is potentially 100K, you could argue that this is minimal. And then once the tooling is in place, we're saying that just putting the tool in place isn't good enough. If we don't look at it, if we don't change our culture, nothing is going to change. So then the culture shift is another challenge that I'm highlighting here. And then I'm providing for every figure and number that I've claimed, every study that I've cited, more information. And in fact, in this case, let's pretend that somebody has already gone ahead and tried SpeedCurve, but for some reason it wasn't the right time, it didn't get implemented. We can reference that previous work here as well. Can you see this? And then in the end, when you think you're done, you can ask ChatGPT that I'm about to share with you a pitch, and I would like feedback with examples from you. I'm providing a little bit of background, so I'm saying I work at Cats Inc. We have been recently having some front-end performance issues. In fact, customers have cited it as a reason for not renewing with us. So you want to give it a bit of background, a bit of context, tell it a little bit about yourself. Imagine it's your friend, you're having a little bit of coffee. I find that really helps. It also really helps if you actually set it up with some prompts for your account. So you can kind of tell it how to speak with you, how you prefer to receive your answers. So you can say, I always want you to give me examples of what you're referencing, or please cite any sources that you've used. So you can provide a lot of context there as well. So I'm also saying that I'm an engineer and I'm pitching to my manager and my team. So ChatGPT now has the same context that I've given to you, And I'm going to just share the whole pitch with ChatGPT. All right. And now you can go grab a cup of tea while we wait, because it recently got much, much slower, but still useful. Oh, we can speed this along. Okie doke. And then you can get some pretty good feedback. And even if it's something that you already know, but you didn't do, it's still good to hear it, right? Like, oh, I knew I should have done this. It's obvious, but it's still good to have somebody else to say, oh, but you said you would do this, but you didn't. So here it's just mentioning that instead of only mentioning the number of tickets and lost renewals, try to quantify the financial impact of those tickets. Great. If you have that data, if you have some kind of correlation or report you can reference, that would be even more impactful. Visual aids. I didn't share any charts because this is a made-up company. But if you have any charts, any dashboards, again, that would be visually very powerful. Then it even gives you some feedback around the hackathon. For example, I didn't specify the goals of the hackathon. That's a very good point. Right? If I specify the goals of the hackathon, it makes it really easy to make the decision whether this is a good idea or not. How unbounded is this hackathon? What is the goal of it? And the same for something like impact. Here it says, can you quantify the impact with some money? Very good idea. Not a lot of companies can, I think, because you need quite a lot of tooling in place to do that. But if you can, do it. And the same here for budgeting strategy. So really, really useful tips. And you can do it with everything. Your slides, your pictures, your notes, everything. So in summary, you want to focus your pitch around the problem, the solution, the impact of solving that problem, and then the challenges that might prevent you from having this be a successful pitch. Always tell a story. Use as much data as you can get your hands on, or add more. And use ChatGPT along the way. And I am available to talk about pitches or performance or any of those bits and pieces. So please come and say hi. Thank you very much.